Hey guys. Alright, so we're on to chapter 22. Cole was kidnapped, Amanda died. We found out the senator that's the problem, which was Bazowski. So it's going, it's moving. It's moving. Alright, on to chapter 22. And look, just this much left. Okay. Club Undead waved its tacky tombstones at us as we drove slowly by. A new bouncer watched the front, where only the loveliest and palest of partiers lined up for their chance to touch immortality. Beside the bouncer stood a sign on an easel that hadn't been there before. A mix of words traced in neon colors spelled out the message, "Welcome to Jazz Night." Only the colors were arranged so the letters "Welcome Jazz" stood out in glowing yellow relief against the black of the board. An arrow drawn in the same glowing yellow pointed straight up. "Do you see it?" I asked, leaning past Vale to get a better view. "I do. Do you think Cole's in there surrounded by goons who are just waiting to shoot me?" "Is this her first fucking mission ever? Is she a fucking rookie? I thought she was an assassin that did this for a living." I would say that is the most likely scenario. Even with the heater on and my jacket zipped, I felt chilled, but my fear factor didn't matter. Cole needed me. "Let me off at the corner, okay?" "What are you going to do?" "Smoke out the innocents downstairs, then meet you upstairs. I think that's his most likely location. Remember, they believe you're dead. Use it to your advantage." "I always do." He pulled up to the curb. I got out and waved him off. He'd park in the alley and make his way to the club's upper story from there. I opened my jacket, walked to the line in front of the club, wiggled my butt right up to the new bouncer, and gave him a smile so sweet, if they put me on TV, I could have sold chocolate-covered cherries to an audience of diabetics. "Okay, Amanda, wherever you are, this one's for you." "Do you know what I smell?" I asked the bouncer. "Nope." He looked interested, though. "I smell freshly turned vamp." I reached into the special pocket reserved for grief, and it came to my hand smooth and deadly as a cobra strike. A flick of the magic button, and 2 seconds later all that remained of the bouncer was a puff of smoke rising from a tiny rain of debris. The girls at the front of the line screamed and shoved their way to the street. A few others went with them. Somebody yelled "gun." An understandable mistake, considering the crappy lighting. Great. Are they being sarcastic? Because she does have a gun. And a mini stampede ensued, during which I let myself into Club Undead. The music hit me like a hammer. Who knew jazz could be so intense? Funny. Clever. My smoke grenades work like those little air fresheners you plug in. They had a vent time to open within 20 seconds of deployment, and a fan to spread the smoke within a 10-yard radius. Since Bergman had designed them, I could hold two snugly in each hand, and still depend on enough black clouds to make it look like a national forest had caught fire. I distributed them evenly throughout the lower level, avoiding the usual pack of immortal-minded lancers as I moved around the room. "Vale, where are you?" "Approaching the fire escape." "I'm taking the spiral staircase now." I slid past loud, laughing couples who seemed to think they'd found a permanent resting spot up to the second level, which was just as crowded as the first. Lit mainly by blue flashing lights and the red and white exit sign stationed above a dark door on the back wall, the cavernous room managed to feel like a damp tunnel. I wiped the sweat off my upper lip as I walked past the dance floor and a steady succession of tables dressed in white cloths. Each held a vase with a black rose in it. Matching black candles, flanked the roses, each held by expensive-looking crystal. Men and women leaned toward each other across the tables, trading passionate looks and caresses, making me wonder how they didn't catch their hair on fire. Speaking of which, fire! The smoke grenades popped, one after another, sending clouds of black smoke billowing toward the ceiling. Screaming, shoving, flailing arms, and pounding feet, the kind of chaos the Sons of Paradise relished. Only this time, it was working for me. I moved quickly toward the exit sign, eyeing the door it highlighted. No telling what lay behind it, and any surprises promised to be nasty. I looked around, hoping to find another way up. What I saw suspended from the ceiling reminded me of a university theater. Lights tilting at every possible angle covered the entire expanse, except for the section taken up by the catwalk. It started at a glass-walled booth, perched nearly 10 feet above my current position, and wandered across the ceiling in a pattern that allowed access to all the lights. A black metal ladder, nearly invisible against the darker black wall, allowed access from my level. I told Vale what I'd found. I'm going to check it out, I said. Maybe the booth has a back door. Good idea. I'm headed up to the third level now. It looks as if the windows are boarded over, so you'll have to be my eyes. Okay. I climbed the ladder, which hugged the wall from the floor to ceiling, intersecting the catwalk on its way. From there, just a couple of steps took me to the door of the overlook. It was open. I'm in the booth, I whispered. It's empty. I love smoke. To my left, a bank of blinking controls stretched from one edge of the window to the next. Two black chairs and the rollers parked in front of it. The only other contents of the room were an empty trash can and a full ashtray. They were smoking inside. You kidding me? That's a fire hazard. There was, however, another door. I eased it open, expecting a sound, a click maybe, that would signal the closing of a trap. I need not have bothered. The trap Aiden and Hassan had laid for me was too big for a click. A gong, maybe, but not a click. My senses told me the room wasn't empty, was actually inhabited by someone feeling deep, repeated waves of misery, and once again they were right. I pulled a long-handled dental mirror out of the kit I'd packed at Bergman's and slipped it through the crack I'd made in the door. Her senses were right? Okay, I think it means her senses were right. I couldn't see the guards, not one. I did see Cole. He sat in a chair in the middle of a room that reminded me strongly of Granny May's attic. Boxes, old trunks, and abandoned chairs took up every bit of wall space. From the scuff marks in the dust, it looked like they'd been shoved to the side to make room for a chair and Cole. He sat perfectly still, looking straight ahead, breathing through his mouth because his nose had been broken. The only way I managed to contain the fury I felt seeing him hurt so badly was to promise myself I would damage Hassan extensively before I finally wiped him off the face of the earth. After another look around the room, I decided Cole was its sole occupant. Jazz? Phil's voice was in my ear, and I held the slightest trace of worry. I'm here. So's Cole, no sign of his captors. These boards are flimsy. I can break through them any time you need me. But you'd rather keep a low profile? Yes, for now. We're going to get only one chance at this surprise. Just be careful. I've been hanging with you for the past 6 months, I reminded him. Careful, okay, is not my middle name, but I'm warming up to the idea. I nudged the door wider with my foot while I trained grief on various sections of the room, both of us primed for attack. The only thing that happened was Cole turned his head and saw me. He looked like a spring break boozer who'd somehow survived a tumble off the balcony. Black and blue bruises covered his entire face, except for where it was red from dried blood. Why a spring break boozer? Why? Why that specific comparison? Blood-crusted gashes showed through his torn clothes. His hands, lying limp in his lap, were swollen, the knuckles scraped and cut. He could have gotten up at any time. Nothing bound him to the chair or even to the room, but he stayed put, looking at me with wordless regret. Cole? I stepped forward, and he said, Stop. The word came out slurred, mostly due to his fat lip, but I noticed a couple of gaps where he'd had teeth the last time we talked. We've got to get out of here, I urged him. Can't. What? He shifted his gaze, and I followed his eyes to a dark, lifeless TV that sat on top of a round wooden bar stool. It blinked to life within seconds, and I was involved in it. It blinked to life, and within seconds I was involved in a staring match with Mohammed Khan Ibn Hassan. Mostly for Bill's benefit, I said, Hassan, what are you doing on TV? Don't you know lowlifes like you have been outlawed by the FCC? That wasn't funny. Good evening, Lucille. Or should I say Jasmine? We appreciate your quick arrival. It gave us some extra time to prepare. For what? He chuckled, flashing a couple of gold fillings as he looked off camera, sharing his amusement with his comrades. Why? The end of the world as we know it. The fear that spiked through me fueled my comeback. You know, you could be killed for throwing cliches around like they actually mean something. However, I believe I'll take you out for your other crimes instead, starting with your wife's death. Cole made a desolate sound that demanded comfort, but I couldn't give it, not now while I was still locked in conversation with Hassan. He laughed again, his absolute lack of remorse making me feel truly murderous. You are a jewel. How fortunate for us both that my master has created the perfect setting for you. Buzowski's not a master. He's a slave to his own psychotic fantasies. Come on, Senator, see if your ego can take that blow, even though we both know who's really in charge. My comment worked like peanut butter on a mousetrap. No sooner had I laid it down than there came the rodent himself, leaping into the camera frame, red-faced and defiant. I expected him to bluster, but he pulled it together fast. He actually smoothed his thick, stubby fingers through his gray blonde hair and straightened his navy blue suit coat. Ah, the magic of television. You are a straight-talking woman, aren't you? He said. Well, then, I'll give it to you straight. Your actions in the next few minutes will determine whether or not your young man dies. You see, we've strapped a clever little device beneath the seat of his chair. If his weight leaves that chair, it will explode, destroying the two of you, the club, and most of the block it sits on. Think of the loss of innocent life. Go on. We can disarm it temporarily from our present position, but only for 10 seconds. For the 10 seconds it would take for you to switch places with him. Scumbag. You don't mind if I check out your story, do you? He beamed at me as if I just won him a bet. His jowls quivered with pleasure, reminding me of that building from the old cartoon. I'm sorry, let me reread that sentence. He beamed at me as if I just won him a bet. His jowls quivered with pleasure, reminding me of that bulldog from the old cartoon. Would he come prancing into the room if I yelled, "Oh, Belvedere, come here, boy"? I had a smirk at the mental image as he said, "Of course not. Feel free." I knelt in the dust of Club and Dead's attic and peered under the chair. Yep, definitely a bomb. I had seen similar devices in bomb squad manuals under the heading "Run Like Hell." Though I felt pretty sure Buzowski had exaggerated its power, I doubted it carried enough explosive to take out much more than the building's top floor. It would still kill Cole and all the people they'd managed to herd back upstairs. Not an acceptable scenario. I had that sinking in quicksand feeling that any escape we attempted now would only make us descend deeper and die sooner. Why not just a sinking feeling? Why sinking in quicksand? I stood up again, my mind looping around a single word. Run, 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 and providing the Pink Floyd soundtrack to back it. A roaring began in my ears, and it had nothing to do with my reconfigured hearing aids. The blackness came next, creeping into my peripheral vision like a feral dog, making my face tingle, making my eyes water. Instinct made me stiffen, resist. It felt so much like losing control, being engulfed in some other, more powerful personality. I looked at Cole and my heart began its own chant. Get him out. Get him safe. Whatever it takes, whatever it takes, whatever. And then my head fell forward and closed my eyes. Without the distraction of sight, I could feel the blackness towering over my psyche like a monstrous storm-filled sky. I resisted the urge to bolt. I didn't invite it in. I just listened. Instantly the roaring sounded less like the Atlantic hammering Florida during Hurricane Barney and more like a voice. All I said was, "Let yourself go." But the words carried a richer meaning, showed me exactly what needed to be done. I recognized the voice. It belonged to the golden man who had brought me back to life, to fight. I raised my head and opened my eyes, catching Buzowski in such a look of greedy anticipation that I suddenly reminded of the villain who starred in many of my childhood nightmares, the kid snatcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Why me? I asked. Previous experience has taught us we need a willing sacrifice. Taking Cole's place makes you willing. It also eliminates the irritation you've been causing. As if I was just a hangnail. But there's power in being so severely underestimated. I addressed Hassan. So that's why using Amanda's brother in India failed, huh? He wasn't a willing sacrifice. Way to read the fine print, doofus. Hassan's eyes nearly crossed with fury at my disrespect, but something made him look off camera, then move aside. Aiden Strait joined him and Buzowski in front of the lens. I fought to remain calm, to mask the fury that whipped through me with such stunning force. There is no such thing as a failed experiment, Aiden informed me. I was working on an entirely different project when I discovered the red plague quite by accident, and I could never have developed it without a series of trials helping me refine it to full potency. The red plague? Such a simple name for something designed to be so horrific. I felt sure we were only going to get one chance to turn the tide, so I kept playing along, fishing for information, watching for some slip that would betray their weakness. I said, That's what I don't get. Why don't you just let it spread the way the flu does? Why all this elaborate human-to-vampire mumbo-jumbo? Oh, info dump time, guys. Aiden couldn't wait to brag on his baby. He spoke eagerly, as if I was a science reporter for the New York Times. When I began this experiment, I planned for a sexual transmission. You people were so steeped in free love and multiple partners, I suppose 65% of you would have been dead in 6 weeks. But the virus mutated into a non-lethal form of pneumonia when humans spread it to one another. How frustrating for you, I said. Ada nodded grimly, totally missing the sarcasm. He went on. I found out quite by accident that when vampires take the blood of a human carrier, however, the red plague becomes nearly 90% lethal. However, it also loses its contagion characteristics. I interrupted him. You mean it can't be spread? Not by the vampire carrier. I cannot tell you how provoking the entire process has been. Wow. Did anybody else see a divine hand dipping down to smack Aiden every time he took a step forward on this one? First, his abominable disease turns into a bunny rabbit when he tries to get humans to pass it around. Then he gets the bright idea for vamps to take the lead role, but they're like a bunch of 2-year-olds. No, we won't share. Aiden continued. However, one among us knew the story of a visionary leader named Teket Derani, and how he nearly ruled this world and those beyond with the help of the Toral Dagon. She will be our delivery system. She will take the plague from the infected vampire and spread it to the world. So, what you are telling me? So what are you telling me? That I should send my See, there's no question mark there. If it's a question, there should be a question mark. Don't you agree? That I should send my damn you're an evil genius Hallmark card to the raptor? Bang. If we'd been standing in front of an impartial jury, I'd have gotten my guilty verdict simply from the expressions on their faces. They recovered quickly, however, and without revealing anything incriminating. Damn them. This would have been the ideal time for the raptor himself to jump in front of the camera and gloat. He didn't, so Lala must have been telling the truth about him taking wing, so to speak. Did he want to have some sort of alibi ready when the plague hit? No, officer, it couldn't have been me. I was playing racquetball that night. Nah, more likely he had some other power play cooking that he had to attend to before it got all dry and crusty. Dirtbags like him never stayed in one place too long. It wasn't profitable. All this time, Maiden had been considering me silently. Now he said, You look familiar. Do I know you? His question staggered me. Did he know me? I experienced an endless moment of total nothingness, like the shock you get right before the boom of a nuclear blast. Okay, I don't know what an endless moment of total nothingness is. And I don't know the shock that one would get before experiencing a nuclear blast. I'm sure something else could have been perfect here, but no, this doesn't work. In the white stillness, I instinctively wanted to grab onto something solid. My emotions were suddenly so mangled I couldn't believe I was capable of coherent thought. Oh my god. Then I became the explosive, a sleek silver canister containing a mushroom cloud full of infinite death. He'd killed Matt. He'd killed me, and I'm supposed to keep chatting with him as if we'd met at a conference years ago and we were getting reacquainted? Jasmine. It was Vale's voice in my ear, concerned, maybe even a little panicky. I can sense your feelings from out here. Something is tearing you apart up inside. Do I need to come in? Hell yeah, get in here and trash this room. Impale Aiden's image on that coat rack over there. Save Cole. Save me. She doesn't actually say this. She's thinking this. I took a deep breath and another. I had to get control. Right. Now. I started to shake. Full body tremors that made me tighten my shoulder blades and clench my fists. My teeth didn't quite chatter, but it was a close thing, as if I'd been walking in 40-degree weather with no coat for hours. Well, 40-degree weather with no coat is kind of doable. Right now 40-degree weather is fantastic. I closed my eyes. The killing time will come, Jazz. You can wait for it. The voice told you so. Jasmine, I'm coming in, said Vale. No. No? Aiden echoed. No. You don't know me, I replied, wishing my voice wouldn't shake like that. I tried to get back to the facts. Things we at the CIA would want to know when we prosecuted the ones Vale and I didn't immediately terminate. What I don't get is, why kill us off in the first place? The way you look at things, that's the majority of your blood supply moves so far down the food chain even the worms wouldn't benefit. Aiden began shaking his head before I finished. No, not at all. We're simply culling the herd, weeding out the weak in order to purify our stock. When they are gone, we will introduce the antidote. I wanted to wipe that smug expression off his face with the flamethrower. This will, of course, make the survivors extremely grateful to us. In fact, they will decide they owe us something in return for saving them from the very plague we have begun. I suppose that's where you step in, Senator? He gave me his classic CNN smile. So caring, so sincere. Ass. A country under siege needs a strong leader. A popular leader. Someone who can explain the new order to them in such a way they'll wonder why they didn't think of it themselves. His delivery was so smooth, I have bet he was speaking from a script, one written by Edward Samuels, a.k.a. the Raptor. And that is? Willing servitude, Jasmine dear. Blood for safety, blood for health. It's not such a high price to pay. I'll show them that. This sounds like a movie plot. Like, it's familiar. Don't get me wrong, I vote in every election. I figure it's my duty as an American. Plus, I don't get to bitch about the direction the country's taking if I don't do my part to start with. But as I stood beside my injured friend, I knew only a politician could face a camera with a pleasant smile as he described how he'd helped set up the mass rape of his own country. I found it hard to speak past the scream that was building in my chest, but I managed. So you gain the presidency and your terrorist friends get to see America brought to her knees. Wazowski nodded graciously as Hassan flashed his teeth. We'll be dancing in the streets, Hassan said. It wasn't hard to envision. They had done the same after the towers fell, and I wanted to kill every one of the sons of bitches then. Soon I'll get the chance, but first... Really? She had to bring up 9/11. I sighed. All right, flip the switch. I'm trading places with Cole. Like hell, said Cole, while at the same time Bill snapped. You will not do this. I took Cole by the hands, but I spoke to Bill too when I said, You have to trust me now. Believe me, I know what I'm doing. Bill's voice blared in my ears. Cole tried to shake his head without passing out. Jasmine, I forbid this. Now, yelled Hassan. Switch. I forbid this. I squeezed Cole's hands as hard as I could, yanked him out of the chair, and took his place. He staggered backward until he collided with the pile of boxes. I thought he'd hit the floor next, but he found his balance. Time to go, I told both men before either could argue. I'll see you again. Soon. I'll be back for you, Cole vowed, his battered face combining with his ferocious expression to make him resemble a biblical prophet. Wild. I'm counting on it, I said. I checked Grief to make sure the safety was on, tossed it to him. Shoot anyone who tries to stop you. Now get going. With the final nod, Cole stumbled out of the room. I didn't have time to worry about whether or not he was going to make it down the ladder, much less the stairs. This is a really long fucking chapter. The three amigos were still tuned in, and I really needed to get rid of them. Would you like me to prepare you for tomorrow's activities, Hassan inquired. We have such a fantastic evening plan. Oh, goody. I've turned myself over to the cruise director of the Beast Boat. Why don't you surprise me, I suggested. You give me too many details and I may decide to walk away from this whole deal. But you would be blown up. Exactly. He and Aiden exchanged a quiet word with the senator. Very well, then. We will leave you in peace. The picture flickered and faded to gray. They'd gone, though I was sure somebody over at Psycho Central will still keep tabs on me. I closed my eyes and lowered my head. Hopefully my watcher would assume I was praying, and in a way I was. As when I made out my out-of-body visit to David, I focused my entire mind on what I wanted. Except this time I had the right words to go with it. Words a voice gave me, now in tremendous booming thumps, as if they resounded from the world's largest drum. My voice was a quiet murmur, fitting perfectly with the dust and neglect surrounding me. As the words spilled over my lips, I began to feel dizzy and disconnected, as if the moment before sleep falls and had been magnified 100 times. My entire body began to tingle, and if I touched someone right now, I'd expect to shock them. I opened my eyes as I felt myself rise. It scared me, actually. I thought maybe I truly began to stand up, and I sure didn't want to end it all with an accidental kaboom. Part of me, the gravity-bound bomb center, stayed put, but another part continued to move up to and through the ceiling, into the roof's crawl space, and through that as well. I started to wonder if anything would stop me from floating away like a hot air balloon minus its release valve. I tried to direct my movements without luck. Up, up I went, space-bound spirit with no hold left in the world. Wrong. It was a voice, like sounding more of thunder than communication. Look. I am looking. The snippy little reply was on the tip of what now passed from my tongue. It was also a lie. All my attention had been directed inward. Now I looked outside myself. 7 golden cords stretched from various points of the earth up to me. I concentrated harder and I realized I could tell who the cord was touching simply by the way it vibrated. Actually, the vibration was more of a song. I identified Albert and Evie immediately. Dave, whose cord had just been a yellow blur the first time I traveled beyond my body, was there too. Vale had his own tune, as did Berman and Cassandra. Cole's was the one I focused on, however. I grabbed the cord of music with what passed from my hands and hurtled down it, delighting at the speed, wondering if this is how it felt to be a skeleton racer. I stopped just short of ramming into Cole, or more likely through him. He slumped against the post of the traffic sign trying to hail a cab, but nobody wanted to stop for a guy who looked like he'd just been mugged and therefore had no money for fare. Cole, I said softly, whispering into his ear. Relax. Vale's coming. He jerked upright and spun around to face a picture of relief and joy. The picture quickly changed to confusion and disappointment. She's not here, fool, Cole chastised himself. She's sitting on a bomb, where you should be. Okay, I'm invisible. Why is that? Dave saw me. I let go of Cole's cord and grabbed Vale's. It took me straight into the van, which he was trying and failing to start. I settled into the passenger seat as he cranked the key and stomped the gas pedal. Over the sound of the struggling engine, I heard him mutter, Stupid, stupid, stupid son of a bitch. He slammed the steering wheel with both hands, making it shudder on its perch. Jeez, Vale, chill, would you? At this rate, Cole's going to freak out and walk in front of a bus while you're still deciding whether to flood the van or trash the steering column. He gaped at me, smiling his dangerous smile, and grabbed for my arm. I think he was hoping for a hug, but his fingers went right through me. The dismay on his face would have been funny any other time. I guess I should have warned you, but I'm not quite solid. But I wasn't sure you'd see me. He shook his head slowly. Unbelievable. You say that like you're impressed, but you're making that face when I get after I make a stupid mistake. He made the that's exactly what you've done gesture. How are you planning to rejoin your body, that is, if it's not blown to bits during the course of events? I thought I'd just try jumping in. Are you insane? Now that Vale had a living sort of target for his anger, he had no problem starting the van. And now that he'd asked me one question I feared most, I found I was too mad to care. And you know what? I probably am. Did I walk straight into a trap so obvious even a woolly mammoth could have avoided it? Because that's my job. Yes, it is insane to leave the biggest part of me sitting on an explosive device, but according to my job description, I'm supposed to save innocents, not endanger them. Yes, it's crazy to stick around waiting for a plague beast to eat my soul. You'd think one death would be my limit, but apparently I just can't get enough of it. So, can we just agree on bonkers and move on already? Vale jerked his head, the version of a nod, and said, So where's Cole? 2 blocks west of here, last I saw him. You saw him? You went to him first? His nose is broken. Holy... the jealousy. It's fucking pissing me off. His nose is broken, I said defensively, and you know what? I don't need an excuse. I might be a couple 100 years younger than you, but I'm still an adult. If you want to show concern for a friend, I will do exactly that. I nearly stopped my foot, but that was a little too junior high to ram home a point. Bill steered the van back onto the street as he began to mutter again. I didn't catch it all, but I heard him say, That will not be all that's broken. Damn it! If there's any other way to screw up a relationship, I will find it. I pictured Cupid sitting in a crappy little bar, drunk and depressed, while he moaned to the bartender. At Jasmine Parks, God, she pisses me off. Did you see what she just did? Totally blew off this immortal stud to play Kiss the Boo-Boo with the fickle little rent-a-cop. Why? Because she's the biggest chicken shit on the planet. I'm ready to toss my bow and pick up the bazooka. Vale? What? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. He refused to look at me, just glared through the front window so fiercely I was surprised the glass didn't crack. You never do. Well, that was a really long chapter. Okay. I'll have 23 for you tomorrow.